These children have no personal possessions, no money, no toys, no dolls to call their own. Even their clothes are shared with others. What they do have plenty of is care and love.
Our story this week on Man Alive is about the love and the compassion found in a small building in this city. This is Hyderabad. It's roughly in the middle of India in the state of Andhra Pradesh. About an hour's flying time southeast of Bombay. 4 million people live in Hyderabad and its twin city, Secunderabad. That's about equal to the population of Montreal and Toronto. Our story, though, is about a tiny few of those millions. 86 children whose lives have been dramatically changed for the better because of the faith and the dedication of one woman from rural Ontario.
A blaze of maples lines a country road near Maxville in eastern Ontario. The road leads to a 100-year-old farmhouse. Some young men ride a tractor. An old dog trails behind. It's a typical scene on Thanksgiving weekend in this part of Canada. But the people living here aren't typical Canadians. They're the Cappuccino family, and they come from around the world.
You're afraid you're supposed to be in the picture, eh?
Here, just grab it. Yeah, but you have to do something.
Although not all present for this occasion, there are 24 Cappuccinos, 2 parents and 22 kids.
Someone's here.
Someone's here.
Who is it?
Bonnie and Fred had 2 children born to them, and over the years they adopted 20 more, most of them from the third world.
I think they have to jump it.
Those all here?
The Cappuccinos are the family that just grew and grew.
Such a good worker. What's that?
No, so they go on camera for rolling.
Annie Laurie came from Korea when she was 22 months old.
Right back in. Oh.
Kailash arrived from India when he was 5.
Are you eating? How about that?
Yes.
Kim Chi sailed from Vietnam with the boat people when she was 9. Bodin also came from Vietnam. He's holding Ashley, a Cappuccino granddaughter.
You want to play? His history.
And there are 18 other children in the family. And Bonnie was the cause of it all, according to her husband, Fred.
For 26 years straight, Bonnie had preschool children in our house. And it was just diapers, 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 and bottles. And when we first married, you know, we decided we'd have 2 children born to us and adopt maybe 1 or 2. But she gets carried away, Peter, and she brings in these kids from all over, and it is a bit stressful having a house full with maybe 16 or 17 kids at one time.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
But the Cappuccino clan is getting older. And as usual in Canadian families, the kids are leaving home. This is Tran's wedding day. He was a sickly baby, one of the first to come out of Vietnam in 1968. But he grew up to be a fine high school athlete. Tran's bride is Luana Bernicki, and they're getting married at the Roman Catholic Cathedral in Alexandria.
You guys stay here. And do what? You guys have your coat on. Take off your coat. Okay, come on.
Many of the Cappuccinos have come from far and wide to attend the wedding. And naturally, they have to get together for a family photo. But with a family this size, getting everybody in line takes a little longer than usual. Of the Cappuccino's 22 children, only 7 now live at home, and they'll be gone in a few years. And that helped Bonnie Cappuccino to think of looking after a different kind of family. Hyderabad, in the middle of India. Its palaces, mosques, and monuments are the legacy of Muslim kings who ruled here for 400 years. But now, Hyderabad and its neighbor Secunderabad have become the 5th biggest urban center in India, teeming with 4 million people, choked by traffic and drowned by noise. For hundreds of thousands of poor people in this metropolis, life is a never-ending struggle. In this sprawling city, the children of the poor have a particularly hard time of it, for India doesn't have the ways or the means to offer them a decent life. But a few are lucky. Away from the crowds and the noise of the streets, they have come to a place named appropriately Child Haven. And it is home to these children, filing along a narrow street after a morning at school. These children come from the poorest of India's poor. Bonnie Cappuccino, along with her husband Fred and Dr. Nat Shaw of Cornwall, Ontario, founded Child Haven International in 1985. It now runs 3 homes in India, a small one in Gujarat, north of Bombay, a larger one in Madras in southeast India, and the largest in Hyderabad. The 3 homes take care of 150 children. Six children live here. They are packed into a 100-year-old building that used to be a private home and then a hospital. Now it's a sanctuary where they are housed and clothed, fed and loved. These kids are fun to be with. They laugh a lot and they take readily to strangers, as we found out when Man Alive went with Bonnie Cappuccino on one of the 4 visits she makes to India every year. And for Bonnie, the inspiration for it all came from within India, from its greatest spiritual leader.
The idea was to have a home in India that would be largely according to Gandhian philosophy, which means simple living, nonviolence, strict vegetarian food, equality of the sexes, and also no regard for caste and no religious conversion.
Now, had you been a follower of Gandhi for a long time?
Well, my husband studied about Gandhi in university, so when we married, he told me about Gandhi, and it was very important to him and became very important to me.
And where do the kids come from? How do they get here?
Most of the children come here through other social agencies who are not doing 24-hour care of children. So we basically have children referred to us from destitute families or unfortunate situations.
And in India, there is no shortage of destitute families or unfortunate situations. 40% of the country's population live below the poverty line. Thousands of people are condemned to live in never-ending rows of slums like these, hovels and tents made out of cloth and cardboard. It's from places like this that some of the children move to Child Haven. Narendra is 1 year old, the baby in Child Haven's family. He and his 2 brothers were brought here after their mother died and their father couldn't look after them. All of these children have similar backgrounds. They are orphans, or they have been abandoned, or their families haven't the means to feed them. When a child arrives here, the formalities are few. Madhavi is 5. Her mother died during an operation in the hospital. An uncle has asked Child Haven to take care of her. But the home won't take official custody of Madhavi. Parents or close relatives can reclaim children when able to look after them. G. Ramakrishna, the manager, who used to work for the Red Cross, meets the callers at the door. There's very little paperwork. The uncle is only asked to sign a sheet agreeing not to interfere with the raising of the little girl as long as she lives in Child Haven. Although the home is desperately short of space, room has been found for one more. Madhavi has a place to stay. Some children are here for reasons unique to India. Aruna Jyochi is the daughter of a Jogani woman. Joganis are virtual outcasts in India. They're sacrificed in marriages to gods when they're young, and they are forbidden normal marriages. To survive, they and their children have to beg for a living. Child Haven looks after 4 children of Jogani women. Many children live on the streets. They have neither homes nor parents. They sleep in doorways and eat whatever they can find. Manager G. Ramakrishna, with help from local police, keeps an eye out for waifs and strays.
There you go. This is a little girl by the name of Parvati. She's 8 years old. And although most of the kids are referred to Child Haven by various social agencies in this country, some are found literally living and sleeping on the streets, and Parvati was one of them. Ramakrishna, you found Parvati in this neighborhood. Can you tell me how she was when you first found her?
She sleeps on the street, and she eats food on the street people. And
How was her health?
that time she looks very ugly, and after 1 month I brought here.
Do you know who her parents are?
Her parents I don't know.
But she's doing all right
No,
now.
she's all right.
You all right now?
At Child Haven's clinic, there is a nurse who lives here and another who visits from a nearby hospital. They have their hands full. The most common complaint is scabies caused by mites burrowing under the skin. It's highly contagious and affects one child after another.
What other kinds of diseases have you seen here? Sister Padma, I was looking through the book yesterday and there was some tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis is rarely.
4 children?
Yes, rare. Commonly malaria.
Malaria too?
Yes.
So what do you do for a child with tuberculosis? You can't take that child away, and can you, from the other children, or is that what you have to do?
Separate the child.
You do have to do
Yes,
that.
yes. First.
Although Bonnie Cappuccino adopted 20 children over the years, Child Haven is not an adoption agency. One of its aims is to keep these children in India. That's why it gets so much support here.
You know, there are 40% of the Indian
J.N.
population.
Puri is a member of Child Haven's board of directors in India, and he says his country needs these
Person is
children.
earning this much. I said, if you want to really serve the people, there are lots of people who need help. If you take handful of children to the country, maybe they are helped and they are absorbed in the other society, but there is larger number of people who need help here. So it struck her very much, and she liked that idea, and then she started immediately for that purpose.
What would happen to these kids if they weren't here in Child Haven?
Well, they would be either on begging in the streets, or they will be elsewhere, or they will be somehow or the other surviving with whatever they can lay hands on. I mean, because the parents who have either one parent or no parents, people survive some or the other, as you might see. I mean, you go around in this part of the rural India, which is unlimited number of people who are suffering from one problem or the other.
Just how harsh these problems can be is shown in the case of Prabhakar. He's only 4 years old, and dressed in his check shirt, he has come from Child Haven to visit his parents, who are beggars on one of the busiest streets in Hyderabad. This is a meeting full of joy and delight. Yet it offers no hope that the family can ever be reunited. For Prabhakar's mother is blind, and his father is afflicted with leprosy. The parents are struggling to raise Prabhakar's 2-year-old brother by themselves, but he too could soon be going to Child Haven. If that happens, he'll be lucky, because the alternative is to stay with his parents, and they'll be begging on these streets until the end of their lives. There are a lot of tears in this kind of work.
I guess I don't get emotional in that way. If I get feeling down, then I try to do a little bit more. And sometimes that helps for me.
The monsoon season in Hyderabad runs from June to late September. In the middle of the day, the sky suddenly turns as black as night. The heavens open and the rain falls in a vertical torrent. Roads turn into rivers and the streets are cleared of people. Only the cows and the water buffalo, which are allowed to roam freely through the city, stay out in the downpour. Then, just as suddenly, the rain stops and Hyderabad comes alive again. Traffic is on the move and people pick their way cautiously through the muddy streets. At the fruit and vegetable market, shops and stalls are back in business. And this provides an opportunity to pick up a treat 86 kids will like. Despite the business and busyness of Hyderabad's streets, one is never far away from the poverty that has its grip on thousands of people who live here. And because there are few social programs to meet the limitless needs, charity is essential to alleviate the suffering and distress. Through no fault of their own, the children here live off handouts. So all gifts are not only welcome, they are absolutely necessary to provide food, clothing, shelter, everything. No government money from either Canada or India finds its way here. Charity alone keeps this haven open. When Bonnie talks to the manager, G. Ramakrishna, it's often about money, for there isn't very much. It costs about $100,000 a year to run the 3 homes in India. In Hyderabad, the budget is only $2,000 a month. A lot of that goes on rent, $300 a month, and on food. 86 kids eating rice 2 or 3 times a day go through 800 pounds a month. Then there's the cost of vegetables, fruit, and milk. And there's the staff to be paid. Besides the manager, there's the cook, Lalita, the nurse, 2 ayahs, and some office help. By North American standards, the wages are meager, from $30 to $80 a month, but they add up. Clothing has to be bought, and it gets washed in the traditional Indian way by the dhobi man. Some of the help is free. Lucy Hager from Concord, New Hampshire, has paid her own way here, and she'll help out in any way she can. In return, she'll get room and board and all the affection she can handle. But even with volunteers, Childhaven is still short of cash. You said you could do with $3,000 a month. What would you like to be able to do with that extra money?
Well, one thing, we would increase the protein in the food. We would try to increase the salaries, perhaps, and we certainly could use a larger building. That's one of our main concerns now, is to get a larger building.
Where do you get the money from?
The money comes mostly from people in Canada and a little bit from the United States and some from India, but mostly from Canada, just local people, individual people who want to do a little bit for India.
I've watched you for the time that I've been here, and you're not the kind of person that gets overwhelmed by anything. How do you do that? I mean, a lot of people would just say, this is too much. They might feel, well, this is just a drop in the bucket. This isn't making any difference. And then maybe it's the Western North American mind that wants, you know, let's...
Instant success or instant results.
Yeah.
I think that we have to enjoy the work we're doing, or we certainly wouldn't be here doing it. And we have to, well, I feel very much involved with India as a country and the people and the culture and the religions. You know, it's such an interesting mosaic of people. And I think that's probably what keeps us going, is just that it's, we derive such pleasure from what we're doing.
For the Cappuccinos, Childhaven is very much a family affair. Fred works as a remotivation therapist with elderly people, and his wages are what the family lives on. But his other job, unpaid, is as Childhaven's treasurer. He has to look after the $100,000 a year needed to run the 3 homes in India. There's fundraising to be organized, committees coordinated, and envelopes stuffed with newsletters. Here, Lakshmi and Kailash pitch in to help. The Cappuccinos get no salaries for their work. Fred has administration costs, but Bonnie and the other directors pay their own fares to India. For Fred, it is a labor of love, not without its funny moments. Fred, tell me what you thought the first time you saw Bonnie with the sari and all the jewelry. What went through your mind?
Oh, Peter, it was kind of a shock, actually. I knew that she was eccentric and very much her own person, and here she comes off the plane and she's decked in this sari, and she's got all these various medallions and so on, and she's got bracelets up to her elbow because that's how the Indian women in that particular part of Gujarat lived. And so she's, of course, I was delighted to see her, and I gave her a hug, and then we're walking down the airport there with the suitcases, and she's jangling along, decked out like a Christmas tree, and and she looks over at me and she says, "Fred, straighten your tie. Can't you see all those people looking at you?"
So you never tried to talk her out of that? You never said, Bonnie, don't do that,
No.
don't wear this?
No. It's made a big difference in my life. That was... You see, it's very stressful living with her, and I'm in a kind of a dilemma. The thing is that I'm sure I'm going to end up in either the madhouse or the poorhouse. That's the one side of it, but on the other side of it, you know, I can't help myself. I love her. I get weak in the knees when I look at her, and that's the kind of dilemma that I'm in.
What do you think you've accomplished? Does this...
Well, I think that we really cannot claim to any great accomplishments. It's simply trying to do a little tiny bit to help a few children.
A little tiny bit, says Bonnie Cappuccino. But that's all it takes. These children don't ask for much. A box of balloons from a Canadian friend of Bonnie's sparks off hours of delight and excitement. These children have no personal possessions, no money, no toys, no dolls to call their own. Even their clothes are shared with others. What they do have plenty of is care and love, and this has given them the chance to get some happiness out of their young lives. Happiness due largely, though not totally, to the efforts of a woman who lives half a world away.
Do you ever hear any resentment from an Indian that it takes a Canadian woman to run this place?
No, we don't receive, because we are working on a very well-defined principles. These are 3 golden principles of our working. That is, we work on simplicity. We don't work like other lot of flush of money. No, we don't have that much money. Then we have that we don't interfere with the religion of the child. Then we also maintain that vegetarianism, which are the cardinal principles of Indian life. So those are these 3 things which are appreciated. No problem.
Darkness comes early to central India, so by 7 o'clock it's time to sleep. There are no beds here, no nightgowns, no pajamas. Only thin toweling covers the stone floor. The children lie down in their street clothes. Life for them will never be soft or easy. Childhaven hopes to take care of them until they reach their mid-teens. Then they will have to make their own way in the world. In the meantime, though, they will live safe and secure in a refuge that has rescued them from an otherwise dismal childhood.